and welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. It's a Friday edition of the program, and we're all set and ready to give you a fantastic show, I should say, ahead of the weekend. Welcome. Guys?
Thank God it's Friday.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Bukola, what she's wearing today on the program.
Oh, it's not new, but thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Okay. Welcome to the Morning Brief, your perfect morning starter, right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. Kaidi.
And I'm Kaidi Okikiolu. Yes, it's Friday, but not to worry. We have a packed show for you. Starting off with that conversation we had time and again about politicians. Again, politicians are like every other person. They're human beings, right? So they jaw, war, and eventually say, well, we're coming together to shake hands and just align, as the case may be. And that's what happened with Labour Party's Peter Obi and PDP's Bala Mohammed. Or maybe that's what's in the works as it is, because they had a meeting yesterday.
Interesting.
And yeah, Mr. Obi flew all the way to Bauchi, landed in Bauchi. We'll just be showing you how what the procession was like yesterday. Just when Mr. Peter Obi landed in Bauchi State, he was welcomed by, there you go, by the PDP government in Bauchi State, right? And then right after the smiles, the photo ops and the handshakes, he met with the governor of Bauchi State. Way to go, surprise, or just old buddies reuniting, guys?
Well, it is what it is. It's politics. It's part of the alignment and realignment ahead of 2027. So it's nothing far from it. Whatever they tell you that it is not, I don't think you should even listen and believe them. Forget about it. It's just a courtesy visit. It's just all of that. Right now, when you see them go and get chieftaincy title, all of these things, it's all part of what politicians refer to as building bridges. So don't get surprised. Whoever is moving where in places you're like, what's going on? Exactly what is going on is what you think it is. So that's what's playing out. All this alignment and realignment, whether there's going to be a merger, which I really doubt. So what will play out perhaps in 2027 is most likely a coalition, and the coalition is going to be compartmentalized. What I mean by that is some persons in a particular political party will group for a political party, another will group for the other. So as a front, I mean, at least maybe not openly, because in the 2023 presidential election or the elections, the level of anti-party activity was large-scale and widespread.
It was alarming.
It was unapologetic. They did it with their full chest. But one of the things that crossed my mind again, Bukola carried it, is the fact, the reason I like to read the Supreme Court judgment is got two things. To remove emotion from issues around polity and politics. For instance, after the 2023 presidential election, we now know that you don't need Abuja to become the president of Nigeria. We now know that IREV is just a viewing portal, not EC, it's from ECHA. So that's quite critical. So in the case of Rivers State, for the cases that have made it to the Supreme Court, for instance, we now know there's something called inconclusive defection. So, yes, there is. Because I remember Matizame Ule read out the letters of the people who were defected. Dumle Mao, the Deputy Speaker's letter, was the first to be read. We saw him on podium giving a reason why they went to the defected to the APC. The number 3 item on the resolution that the president brokered talked about the fact that the governor should allow these guys be, even though they've defected to the PDP. It's documented and all of that. So I can go on and on as to the quote-unquote evidence to show that they defected. But when we got to the Supreme Court said, look,
destination.
Waving flag, television, all of those. All it takes is PDP, let's see your record. Are their names there? Oh, it's still there. APC, do you have their name? No, it's not there. So what are we discussing? Well, how that happened is up to the... So I'm saying that to say that when Nigerians are dealing with politics, push emotions aside and be tactical. Else, before your eyes, you're going to lose a good case or a bad case, however you want to look at it. So it's very clear. You understand? So there are evidence, let's call it street evidence to defection. But that doesn't count in court. What counts in court is your name on the register of the political party, and then the chairman, is he a member? Is he not a member? Before we even talk of division. So keep your my moral lesson, keep your emotions in check when you're dealing with politics and the law. They are different things altogether.
Well, I wonder if that is what we call technicality within Nigerian legal jurisprudence, that is featuring more, frequently in cases that are presented in court. But to what brought us here, I was hoping that you guys would hit the nail on the head, but Jeffrey did that,
which of the nails now?
Well,
which of the nails and which of the hammer?
Definitely that, just a bit, but not exactly. You said it's just a reunion of old buddies. We know Peter Obi's backstory, how he got here, by the way. I like that cap. I wonder if it's a solidarity with Governor Bala Mohammed, but it is a signal of what is to come. Yeah, that cap that Mr. Peter Obi wore there. But we know where he's coming from. He left the party amid disagreement over PDP's decision not to zone the presidency to the south, and he had an ambition. But does this mean that Mr. Peter Obi is returning to the PDP? We know also that Governor Bala Mohammed, by the way, is also chairperson of the Nigerian PDP Governors Forum. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. He's been a strong voice, of the opposition, challenging even the federal government, sometimes. So is Mr. Peter Obi returning to the PDP, and what does this mean for the Labour Party? We know that there's also been disagreements. There have been disagreements within the Labour Party over, who retains leadership. There's still a caretaker committee, of the party. And is this going to swell the ranks of the PDP if Mr. Peter Obi returns to the Labour Party? Because we know that he's, since gained political relevance after moving to the Labour Party. And he's, whether we like it or not, he's worked very hard since losing the election, to retain that elder statesman status with his philanthropic gestures and his consistent voice in criticizing government policies and holding them to account. But does this mean that there will be anything significant in the 2027 elections, which is, what every politician is preparing and positioning for? So the answers will come in the coming 15 months from now.
I think, this is the part I have a lot of respect for the president. When it comes to the Fourth Republic, he's one of the most consistent in staying in a party no matter what is happening in that party. The party may have changed names, but he has not changed his position.
You're getting somewhere. But you know what? We give you more of the show. We know where this is going. But the point is, do not be emotional about this. Do not die over anybody's battle.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, what do we have for you on the show this morning? Well, it's not a battle. No, what we're trying to do is inform you, give you what you need to know, and for the good of yourself and our nation, Nigeria. And education is where we're starting from this morning. Nigeria faces a critical learning crisis. With that revelation yesterday that 60 million children aged 5 to 14 are unable to read properly. Just recently, I was reading through the writings of secondary school students in a public school, and it was tough to see just one of them stringing together a sentence without errors. Is this a challenge with a model? Should we revert to our indigenous languages? What exactly is wrong? We're going to talk about education on the show this morning.
Yeah, Kari, that's even also a crisis, even at first-year learning, grade for undergraduate students. And that's why sometimes they say that our graduates are unemployable. It's an English crisis. But you asked a very important question. Does it have anything to do with our curriculum? We'll ask all those questions this morning on the program. Then we also go over to Ebonyi State to have a chat with the Commissioner for Special Duties and State Diaspora Focal Point Office. What does that mean? You may want to stay tuned to find out. We'll be looking at his role in governance, public service, coordination, and engaging the diaspora for state development. And
away from that, the youth conference, National Youth Conference that is forthcoming. What exactly is this youth conference all about? What does it mean? Well, they say part of the highlight is to reverse the Jackpot syndrome. We'll get to find out, details of what this means for the polity.
And the big one yesterday, the tax administration bills, the House of Reps did a yeoman's job, gave it a green light as it is. So we're going to be diving deep into it. There you see the tax reform bill, 7.5% VAT. I know some people are excited instead of 15%. But what does this mean really? We'll find out.
And of course, two things again. Stephen Chooks, a talented actor, content creator, and filmmaker, will be joining us on the program. Besides all of that, also, we'll be bringing you a gentleman who is doing content a bit differently as well when it comes to understanding what goes on at the National Assembly. So two content creators will be joining us to break things down for us right here on the program.
So who's going to contest me when I say that indeed we'll have
that will be promise of
bumper package on the program today?
I'm going to buy a basket. I'll go to somewhere around where's that place? Close to, before Maryland, there's this bypass or ramp. I'll go and buy you a basket so that whenever you say bumper, I drop it for you. So you put the thing inside your bumper package.
Just make sure that the basket is not empty, Jeffrey.
Not to worry, guys. So CTV Morning Brief is the hashtag, as well as our email rolling on your screen. So send your thoughts, send your suggestion, whatever it is, send it to us through the mail. Also, of course, our WhatsApp number at some point will scroll on your screen, so you can also send us messages and videos only. If you want to say hi to Bukola, it's fine. It's Women's Month, so all the messages should be directed to her.
To everyone. To her. It's a democracy.
I'm not a lady.
It doesn't matter, Jeffrey.
So, those are some of the channels through which you can reach all of us right here on the program as we have a great conversation today. It's a Friday edition of the show. But hey, we'll take just a quick break and we will be right back in just a moment.
We're getting started with the Guardian newspaper this morning on the front pages. Take a look at the big story on the front page of the Guardian. It's an ouch moment, really, an ouch moment for Nigeria. From gown to town, dearth of first-class solutions mocks high turnover of varsity geniuses. Again, I say, ouch.
That was below. It wasn't below the belt, it's below the legs, literally. So let's explain what they're saying for context. We have a lot of first-class graduates, geniuses as is quoted, but the solutions we need to drive development is not there. So what exactly are we churning out? Is it just book-smart people?
Half-baked graduates.
Half-baked graduates. What exactly? Or people are going to school for courses that are not relevant to the Nigerian system. So those are the things, when I did the database management system, the entities, those are the entities you will enter to find out exactly where it is missing. That's why this just reminds me, guys, yesterday of the conversation we had with the Commissioner for Innovation, Science and Tech in Lagos, who talked about how Lagos is trying to solve this problem by making sure that as you're leaving school, there's a job waiting for you. So there's a demand and supply within the value chain. But this is almost, you almost don't know what to say. You can't debate with it.
We must also, take a deep dive into the story. You'll find it, by the way, on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper to see, if it is data-driven, just how far-reaching is this dearth of first-class solution affecting universities across Nigeria? Is it just federal universities where we're having an increasing low number of first-class graduates? Or is it across board, either federal universities, state universities, colleges of education? But nonetheless, it's a worrying situation. And this speaks to the intervention of the Ministry of Education, about how we need to ensure that, the curriculum is skill-driven rather than, just, the archaic, ancient theoretical approach to learning, because increasingly, the economy globally is driven by knowledge, what we call the knowledge-based economy. So it's a worrying development. And I also recall our conversation with the Commissioner for Innovation, Science and Technology in Lagos yesterday, where he talked about sort of a handshake between, institutions and, the government in terms of innovation, where they're building solutions, technological solutions to problems, within the economy. So that tells me that already there is motivation for those who are in school, to be innovative in learning and developing, inputs, technological equipment that the economy requires to thrive. And then there's already, headhunting going on. So they don't have to wait 5 years looking for jobs as they're graduating. They're already being picked up. So it's a return of the old system where our fathers went to school and they were headhunted and employed right from universities. So, but it's a good intervention by the Guardian this morning. And we all should get empowered with what the story, the implications of this story.
I think we should go to the blueprint. After 120 billion naira revenue loss, FG moves against private jet owners. The ministers had their ministerial briefings, their usual briefings yesterday. Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, said illegalities perpetrated for 50 years. Tinubu committed to quality education for all Nigerians. That's Tunji Alausa. And history will judge the president favorably. That's Mohammed Idris, the Minister of Information. So I did listen to part of what the aviation minister said. Some of these private jet owners, there's a classification in registering it. There's the one you register just to do your private life, travel with your family and all of that. Then there's the one that they use for charter and all
taxi.
Of that. Taxing, yes, that's the word.
Ride hailing.
So a lot of the people who do the air hailing now,
right?
The taxing, will go and register like they're just using it for their private life. And Nigeria lost about 120 billion in about, I think, a couple of years, about 10 years or so. So he said, no, it's not going to work. So when he went trying to go after them, according to him, they said the big men will go after you. He said, no problem. I was a prosecutor for the EFCC. I'm used to this.
So bring it on.
Bring it on.
You know what's quite interesting? How people are the same across different strata. So for maybe middle class or lower class, when you have a vehicle and you're trying to make ends meet, right? What you're going to work, you just turn that vehicle to a commercial taxi. That's why you see some private, mini buses or cars parked at the bus stop, and then you say, oh yeah, Island, 500. Right? That's what people do that have their car. So private jet owners, maybe they transition from that level up until... So they're like, wait, I did this when I had a car, right? And I have a private jet. Hey, let me make money.
Air transport is another kettle of fish entirely.
I say people are almost the same.
With many implications.
Yeah,
whatever intervention.
I understand where guys is coming from. More like
the
attitude is the same. Well, in fact, if we start using private train now, some people have private train and they start using private train for more services.
It's just amazing. But those are the big stories on the front page. But we're getting started with the all-important conversation around education. Yes. What exactly do we want to make of education in the country? What do we want to do with it? And that's where we're starting from in a few seconds. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us. Nigeria's Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, made a statement yesterday that a lot of people may have missed. And it's understandable. There's a lot of talk around politics, talk around other issues. So they may have missed that very important statement he made, saying that 60 million Nigerian children aged 5 to 14, in his words, are learning poor. Now, this means they cannot read properly. Yes, 60 million, he said that. Now, while we can debate about the data and all of that, but these are things we see every day, and some of the front pages speak to that as well. So how do we ensure that our children learn rich and can eventually contribute to Nigeria's wealth so we can build a nation that is wealthy. That's where we're starting from this morning. And we're joined on the program, as you can see, by Professor Josiah Jiboye from Department of Arts and Social Sciences, Education, University of Ibadan. He's immediate past registrar and Chief Executive Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, TRCN, and former President, Africa Federation of the Teaching Regulatory Authorities, joining us from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. And we also have the Commissioner for Basic Education, Yobe State, Associate Professor Abba Idris Adam. Good morning, gentlemen, and you're welcome to the morning brief. I'll begin with Prof. Ajiboye, and I just want you to speak to that data. It is startling. Again, a lot of people may have missed it, but these are the things that contribute to where we are as a nation today. So when you look at that data, what exactly is the problem here? Is it a challenge with the teachers? Is it a challenge with the tools, the environment, the learning environment? Is it a challenge with the curriculum we're using? Or is it a challenge with the students, and perhaps the home, the parents, and the society itself? Professor.
Good morning, Nigeria. And it's my pleasure actually to be here this morning. Yes, I didn't hear the earlier part of the question, but I can say that, well, the Honorable Minister of Education came out with some of the issues that have been identified, especially with regards to the challenge of what we call educational deficit or deficiency in terms of the number of children that are between the ages of 4 and 15 that are not able to read and also do arithmetic. This is not the first time these statistics is coming out. As our 2023, UNESCO itself came out with a figure of about 75% of children ages between 4 and 15 that are not able to read and do arithmetic. That's a very staggering 75% of children that are in school that are not able to read or do arithmetic. So it's really a big challenge. You know, Nigeria, apart from the challenge of literacy deficit, or what you can call educational deficit, we also have the challenge of out-of-school children. So when the Honorable Minister came out with these statistics of the number of students that cannot read or do mathematics, well, some of us are not surprised. And we look at it. There could be so many factors that are responsible for this. There could be so many factors responsible for this. Well, like you mentioned, we have the teacher factors, we have the learner factor, we have the environmental factor. And when you look at the major thing that we have been talking about for a long period, that's about funding of education. It's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. There's no way you are going to have high level of achievement in terms of learners' achievement in education when the level of funding of the education system is still very, very low. Nigeria is challenged in this particular area. And also, you talk of infrastructural deficit. We talk of infrastructural deficit. But, everybody can sit back and identify some of the challenges that are associated with this. But what we are trying to say, and we are trying to advise the Honorable Minister, is this. One, I think it is high time. Because look, rather than coming out with what we call this piecemeal approach, yes, it's good to come out with the strategy, which the Honorable Minister has done, the strategy to address some of these challenges, the out-of-school children, and even those who are in school, the level of their achievement and things like that. It's good to come out with strategies. But I think what we should do is to subject our strategies to a national debate. And I think it will be very important because at a time, the government, maybe the previous minister, toyed with the idea of 16-year age for entry into the university. And then we also got the idea of the 12-year basic education, which came out recently. And then this one is coming out now. I think what we should do, and at the level of the Nigerian Academy of Education, the thinking presently is that the Honorable Minister will do well. If it is not budgeted for this year, we may be thinking of 2026 budget. the Honorable Minister will do well to convoke a stakeholders, what you call the National Conference on Education, okay, where we are going to address, in fact, address all these issues. In fact, people are saying that our national policy on education as presently constituted is outdated. The last national conference that was organized on education in Nigeria was in 1969. That was the 1969 Curriculum Conference, which was organized at the University of Lagos. Okay, and that conference brought together all stakeholders in education and even in the world of work. Everybody came together, and that was what led to the introduction of the 6334 system of education. And that was what led to also the introduction of the national policy on education, which has been revised over time. But I think this is the right time for us. Let us sit back and look at our education system. Is it achieving what it's supposed to? It's not only about learning deficit. It's not only about learning deficit. There are there are so many challenges that are confronting the Nigerian education system. So let us sit down at a conference. Like I said, if it is not possible this year because it has not been budgeted for, one will advise the Honorable Minister of Education and the Honorable Minister of State for Education and the whole Federal Minister of Education, which one has been part of the family for some years, that what we need to do at this stage is to bring everybody together. Let us look, including the industry. Are you satisfied with the kind of graduates that you are getting? And what kind of graduate do you need? If a child, in primary 5 and 6 could not read or write, and that is what the statistics the Honorable Minister is giving us is saying. I can tell you.
So we can extend the conversation to the Commissioner of Education in Yobe State, Mr. Idris Adams, the Commissioner for Basic Education. But Commissioner, Professor Ajiboye has made some very interesting points talking about convoking, a national discourse on education. Let's know what we want to make of education. So he says if it's not budgeted for this year, perhaps next year. But I'm not sure if our education system can wait that long. And part of the solutions that the Minister of Education proffered are, one, reduction in the burden of out-of-school children and integrating them into formal education and improving the quality of education outcomes. I was looking at data and I saw that Yobe and 2 other states in the region you have 2 million plus out-of-school children as of last time when I checked the data, and that's alarming. Add to that the fact that some states have shut schools. So it looks like while we want to have that conversation, decisions are already being made, and those decisions are affecting the outcomes of education already. So do you agree that first we need to have that national conversation? 1, 2, how is your state working on reducing the burden of out-of-school children in spite of a school closure?
Thank you so much, and good morning, Nigerians. I think one of the key issues that need to be addressed first is what is learning poverty? Because our major problem is learning poverty. Learning poverty is the inability of a child to read or understand a simple text by the age of 10, or at least after completing a primary school. And according to the UNICEF, as just rightly mentioned by the Prof, about 75% of school-age children in Nigeria suffer from learning poverty. And this, the number presented by the Honorable Minister in our last engagement with him in Abuja, is about 16 million. And 75% of this 16 million is about 45 million. This 45 million that we are talking about is higher than the entire population of Senegal, Chad, and Benin combined. So we are not talking of a small number. However, I think one of the best things we need to do is to look at the root causes. What are the things, what are the factors responsible for this? A child will complete a primary school but cannot read or understand a simple text. Number one, we have what we call the poor quality of education. Under the poor quality of education, you have lack of qualified teachers in schools. I don't want to say lack of qualified teachers in Nigeria, because in Nigeria we have many qualified teachers. The problem is that these qualified teachers don't want to stay in school. It is very common, for example, in Nigeria to find a qualified teacher who has acquired all the skills and methodologies of teaching and learning. You find him working in a bank. Secondly, is that the outdated curriculum that we are using. Our curriculum does not align with the current realities in Nigeria. We are teaching students courses that cannot contribute meaningfully to the development of Nigeria or to our GDP. For example, we completely ignore skill acquisition in our primary and secondary schools education. The next thing is outdated teaching and learning methodology. Up to now, our teaching in Nigeria, is focusing on rote memorization. You will find a child memorizing bunches of books, speeches, formulas, and whatever. And by the time he graduates, after like 2-3 years, he will forget almost everything, and then he will become illiterate, but with a degree certificate or a secondary school certificate. Another factor is the one mentioned by the prof, out-of-school children. And these out-of-school children, for you to address the problem of out-of-school children, you need to address the factors that are contributing to that. Number one, you have poverty. Some of the parents don't have the financial capability of sending their children to school. Not because they don't want to, they want to, but the responsibilities of sending the children to school is beyond their ability. Another thing is insecurity and conflict. Most of the areas where people suffer from insecurity and conflict or communal clashes, it is very common to find students or children out of school because the situation is not that peaceful for them to go to school. For example, in Yobe State and Borno and Adamawa during the Boko Haram insurgency, where these insurgents target school facilities. So it is very dangerous for you to send a child knowing fully that he may lose his life if he go to school. Another factor is language barrier. We in Nigeria, we are learning the language and the knowledge at the same time. How is it possible, for example, for a child, for a Hausa child, for a Yoruba man, for example, to teach a Hausa child Yoruba language and mathematics at the same time, and we want him to understand this mathematics fully? Most of the countries that do not suffer from learning poverty, you find that they are teaching in their own native language. So the language barrier is creating like inferiority complex for students to participate in the class. You may ask a question, a student may know the answer, but because of the medium of instruction, he cannot communicate properly. That will stop him from participating. And when he made a mistake, his colleagues will laugh at him, and this will discourage him from coming to school. So all these factors, unless they are addressed, definitely the learning poverty will be very difficult to erase in our Nigerian education system.
All right, Prof. Let's maybe look at possible solutions. You've raised a couple of things, and I want to bring in AI in all of this. How this revolution that AI has brought can help close this gap. 70% in this learning poverty is a big number. This question is for Prof. So how can we use AI? Because that's a tool the world has right now, whether you are in Nigeria, you're in America, and all of that. But the commissioner has mentioned something that has to do with literally affecting the dignity of a child, knowing the answer, but because of language barrier, is not able to respond to that particular question because it doesn't want to be laughed at, she doesn't want to be laughed at. How do we close that particular gap as well? Because it's sometimes quite unfair that because the person is not well articulated, can't articulate his or her thought very well, but has ideas, but those ideas are dismissed because of the way he or she sounds, and it's not native language, it's a foreign language. Prof.
Well, let me start from this. The fact that, look, the commissioner actually talked about the curriculum, outdated. I want to say that the Federal Ministry of Education, with his agency, with the Nigeria Educational Research and Development Council, have recently reviewed a lot of the curricula that we have in our schools. In fact, a new set of curricula have been introduced in terms of skills, okay? Because this is the way we are going. We are going the way of, what the minister called STEM, S-T-E-M-M, okay? In terms of mathematics and even machine, okay? So this is where what we are saying is that, look, artificial intelligence and even technology generally, we have to come in. Look, Nigeria cannot stand aloof of what is going on globally, okay? The rest of the world is not going to wait for us as a country. And that's why we have to look for ways by which we have to integrate technology into our educational system. And I think the NERDC recently is looking towards this direction. What we need to do is for the government to be able to fund the review of the set of curricula in our schools. And that also, comes back to what I said earlier on. It's not good for us to be doing these things piecemeal nature. It's not good. I think what we need to do is to look at the comprehensive thing. Let us sit down together, look at the whole of, including the word of the industry. Let them come out and tell us the kind of graduates that they need. If a child is leaving primary school level, what is supposed to be the minimum level of literacy and numeracy that that child should have? What is the level of basic skills? We know in the past that a child that finishes primary school in the past, okay, even middle school, when we have modern school there, even those child that finished secondary school, they were gainfully employed. They started their employment with secondary school leaving certificate. But today, can we have the same thing? Can a child that finishes secondary school be employed anywhere today? Let us look at it very well. And so I think it will do us well as a nation. Because if we continue with this piecemeal approach, we are not going to get there. It will be difficult. But what we need to do is, yes, how do we integrate, for example, the question of AI? How do we integrate? Yeah, Nigeria has come out with what we call the national language policy in education. Okay, this is not the first time we are talking about it. It was approved even under the last dispensation. The immediate past government of Muhammadu Buhari approved what we call the national language in education. Okay, so it's not strange to us. We already have that policy on the national language in education. But how do we implement it? That has been the major problem. The states, or how do we carry the states of the federation along in implementing the national policy on language in education? How do we carry them along in terms of training their teachers, in terms of making sure that we provide the necessary facilities to implement that? So we are not bereft, excuse me, we are not bereft of some of these beautiful ideas. But I think our major problem has always been in the area of implementation. Yes, I listened to the Honorable Commissioner talking about the quality of our teachers. It's a big challenge. You know, I was able to drive the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria for about 8 years, and we know what we have done in terms of policy documents that we have rolled out, in terms of the introduction of the professional qualifying examination for teachers at that particular level, to make sure that anybody that will teach in our school is not only qualified, but competent to be able to deliver. We have done this, but to what extent have the states of the embraced what?
You have made a very important point about engagement of, you know, the states at that level on how to implement the national language policy, which is a critical factor in this data that has been produced by the Minister of Education on 60 million plus children with a learning inability to a certain extent. But I'd like us to know, you know, to expand the conversation further by asking if we understand the state-by-state breakdown of this data as we do the number of out-of-school children across the 36 states of the Federation. We know which state contributes what percentage to the 10+ million out-of-school children that we have in Nigeria. But do we understand the breakdown of this data? And if we do, I'm coming to you now, Commissioner, and if we do, how intentional are the states in you know, being deliberate about tackling it through their budget? For instance, we know that Enugu State is committing 20% of its budget to education, but is it the same across the states of the Federation, particularly in the north, which have the highest contribution to the number of out-of-school children in the country? So two in one, and that's for you, Commissioner.
Well, in our last discussion, we made mention of the total percentage of out-of-school children in Yobe State, which stands at 24%. The learning poverty that we have, based on after the annual school census conducted by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in 2024, we are having about 19% of the total school children that are suffering from learning poverty. However, in order to address this, one of the major steps that need to be taken is to make sure that education is made free, number one, so that each and every child will have access to equitable, quality, and inclusive education. Number two is that making all the necessary, not just making the school free, but making even the WAEC and NECO, where students will now come and register. Let that financial burden be taken by the state. And this is what His Excellency Honorable Maimana Boni is doing in Yobe State. from primary school up to completing secondary school. No child is paying anything. And what the prof mentioned is what we call teacher professional development policy. Teacher professional development, it is quite different. I said earlier that we have qualified teachers, but most of them don't want to stay in teaching profession.
About if you're going to increase your budgetary allocation to education in order to tackle the multifaceted aspects of this problem, the teacher, inadequacy of teachers, learning tools, and indeed tuition fees. Will you be increasing your budget? And are you also calling on other subnationals to significantly increase their budgets to education?
Of course. But what we need to know is that each state has its own peculiar problem. Some states may not have that. Probably the learning poverty is not their priority. But for example, in Yobe State, out-of-school children and learning poverty is what we are focusing particularly in the year 2025. That is why the budgetary allocation of Ministry of Education has been increased in order to make sure that these areas have been covered. I don't know. Last week or last 2 weeks, we just made His Excellency Honorable Maimada Boni sponsored over 890 students in a private school, indigenous of Yobe, with the amount of almost 2.2 billion naira to go and study. This is another way of making sure that the learning poverty has been reduced drastically by, making at least the ways to acquire knowledge is diversified. Some of them will go into public school, others that are going to even private school, they are being paid for by the state government. So addressing this actually requires a multifaceted approach. One of them, as you rightly mentioned, is to make sure that we, increase the budgetary allocation for education in order to make sure that this particular group of students have been provided for with all the necessary support they need, so that the learning poverty problem would squarely be addressed.
So on a final note, just one statement from both of you. Language of learning. Should we still stick to indigenous languages? And that's for both of you. The language of learning, do we stick to indigenous languages or sorry, should we revert rather to indigenous languages or still stick to the English language? I'll start with you, Commissioner, and then Prof will have the final word. So there's just one sentence on that one.
One of the problems is that we can maintain English, but when we have qualified teachers who can teach properly and adequately.
All right, so maintain English. Professor Jiboye, your response to that, final words.
Thank you very much. The national policy is very clear. At a certain level of the education system, you use the language of the immediate environment. And when you go to the higher level, you adopt English language. I think we should maintain this because the children we prepare, they are also global children. They are not just for Nigerian market. So I think we should maintain that. Let us use language of the immediate environment at the lower levels. And when the children are climbing up, we go to the use of English language. I think this will help our country in the area of development. Thank you very much.
Professor Josiah Jiboye, former president of African Federation of Teaching Regulatory Authorities, immediate past registrar and chief executive of the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, and from Department of Arts and Social Sciences Education, University of Ibadan, as well as the Commissioner for Basic Education, Yobe State. Commissioner, we had a conversation the last time about Bindingari Primary School. Did you visit? Were you able to do anything about the situation of the school?
I visited, and the solution is currently going on.
So what is being done there now?
What we did is that to providing those decks that were missing, and inshallah, everything is now going on. It is about to be completed and it will be presented.
So we'll love to see the images. We'll also be sending our people there. But we have to thank you so much for at least being proactive. The Associate Professor Abba Idris Adam, Commissioner for Basic Education, Yobe State. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
We'll take a quick break now. When we return, we have someone joining us from Ebonyi State. He's a commissioner, but he has business in Lagos, particularly for people from the state who are maybe going through challenges. What exactly is being done to liaise with the state government and ensure that the people have better outcomes? That's the moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we move to the next leg of our conversation. And just to set the tone, Nigeria has a Nigeria in Diaspora Commission, which is big on engagement of Nigerians in diaspora and has been able to record some giant strides in that regard. But at the state level, there seems to be an emergence of, a philosophy in that direction as well, of engagement of citizens of the state abroad. So let's try to understand that within the context, of course, of Ebonyi State. And joining us to have this conversation is the Commissioner for Special Duties in Ebonyi State, and is also the man in charge at the State Diaspora Focal Point Office in Ebonyi State. He is Mr. Valentine Okike Uzo. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And okay, you've been in Lagos. I was going to ask, how was your journey from Ebonyi to Lagos?
Yeah, I don't live in Lagos. I came purposely for the reason why we are here. I just came in a few days ago.
Okay, welcome.
I live in Abakaliki, Ebonyi State.
That's why she asked, how was
the journey?
The journey was good.
Beautiful. So let's start this way. For those who are trying to understand, the need for an office of the focal point for diaspora in Ebonyi State, put it in context. What's the justification for it, and what is the mandate of that office?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank my governor for the opportunity to be here. And again, since the creation of Ebonyi, we've not had the diaspora desk. It's just in the system when the present governor, we came in, that there was need for us to have the desk. So the purpose for that is to engage the diaspora abroad. Of course, those abroad should be able to know what the government is doing. And as well, we also know how they are doing. We have this channel where we tell them the policies and program of the government, and in return, they could also bring back to the state to develop with those things that have learned abroad.
Beautiful. So what is the strategy for engagement of the Ebonyans in diaspora for investment in Ebonyi State? So what are the proposals and the areas of investment that the state is considering?
We look at so many places and areas. For instance, I was in London last year. The governor was able to allow me to travel to engage for foreign direct investment, and it was a huge opportunity for us to meet with people who could actually help. And it came because we had our brothers, Ebonyans, who live abroad. It was easier for us to connect the investors. So we are looking at infrastructure, which of course we are already having in the state. We're looking at developing a proper and quality education. Of course, in January, 300 Ebonyans left for UK and the United States of America for their master's and their PhD programs under the sponsorship of the government. So these are the things we have been able to do, and we are doing much more.
Let's talk about why you're in Lagos, because I imagine you go around the country depending on where Ebonyi people are and what challenges they're facing. And some videos trended recently on social media. You may have seen it about Ebonyi indigents in Ilaje, Butemeta, Lagos, facing a crisis in sense of the threat for their homes to be demolished and all of that, them crying out and stuff. So how are you intervening? What is the channel of communication like? What have you been able to glean? And in terms of commitments or assurances, perhaps from the government in Lagos State, what have you been able to get?
Well, like I said, that's the reason why I came to Lagos. It was just on Monday when we were told officially, and I had to make a memo to the governor, and he immediately asked me to leave for Lagos to bring them back home. And what we've been doing since I came, I've been going there on a daily basis. When I leave the channels, I'm going back to Elijah. We keep evacuating them. Every day, 2 luxurious buses leave, and 3 trucks, about 5 vehicles leave for Ebonyi State. I was just told that the people that left last night just arrived at Abakaliki now. So, and what we do is we provide them to be sure that Ebonyans, because government has, good program for them. Some of them who want to go back to school, government is giving a free education to come and study. And some of them who will not want to go back, government will also empower them to learn skill and also do business. And some of them who could still want to come back to Lagos, maybe after you have, have some respite at home, get some money, you can still come back home and continue your business. But on the whole, Ebonyi is good. Governor has developed the state. They can actually stay in Ebonyi and do businesses and live good life.
So that brings me to the next natural question. Why should either people of Ebonyi or people who are not from Ebonyi come to Ebonyi to do business? What is the justification that if I want to have an investment in Ebonyi, What should I be looking at? What are the guarantees that I should have? Exactly.
Good question, sir. The governor, His Excellency Chief Francis Ebonyi was in the House of Assembly for 12 years, 8 of which he was Speaker. So there was a law under his leadership that guarantees investors in the state. So there's this investment protection law of Ebonyi where you are guaranteed of your investment. It's not when a government comes into place and people who have come to invest could be, molested in various ways. So we have a law that protects you and your investments. And we also have good infrastructure. We have roads, there's steady power in Ebonyi, and the people are friendly.
Okay, so you talked earlier about areas for investment, and you mentioned infrastructure, education, just to mention a few. But why not tourism? And the reason I ask this is because during the, dirty December concept and wave last year, the amount that was being quoted about Nigerians spending when they came home from different parts of the world was in the realm of billions. And that suggests, the value of tourism and the value of hospitality. So some would say education, infrastructure is government's business to ensure that when businesses and investments are coming into their domain, they will thrive. So why aren't you exploring hospitality and tourism?
We do that as well. The Commissioner for Culture and Tourism is quite, constant about engaging people to actually come and they develop a lot of sites we have in Ebonyi. And there's a context that's ongoing now about culture in Nigeria. I don't actually know the name, but Ebonyi is number 2. They have been in camp for 2 months. Ebonyi has been coming first, second. So it tells you that Ebonyi is rich in culture, and we are also looking at that direction to explore, investing in culture and tourism for people to come and see what we have in Ebonyi.
So what, in that area, how are you partnering also with the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission to also expand your scope of, the scope of your mandate to engage Ebonyians further who are abroad?
Thank you very much. I want to sincerely thank my chairman, Abike Davirewa. She has been a very tremendous and wonderful woman. I work under her as a focal point officer of Ebonyi. So we are doing quite well. We have this beautiful synergy. We're working very closely. In fact, even in London, we were together. Right. And my governor has always given me that platform to work. The logistics are provided at all times. So we're working together, and I'm sure you'll be in May, but you'll be hosting the 36 states of focal point of view, including our chairman Abike with her crew. That tells you that we are good.
Is that not why the PDP had berated the government at some point of what they consider wasteful spending? There was a time, I think somewhere in November, the government was, the PDP was very hard on the government of, they call it frivolous spending, say even commissioning part of the airports twice. I want you to speak to that again, as to judicious use of public funds by the state government. Now you said another event is coming up again. Perhaps it's why the PDP is always saying the government is wasteful in their spending.
Well, there's nothing you do that the opposition will not talk about. Because if you give them opportunity, they'll also be there. And we have PDP in the past. What did they do? I don't want to dwell much on politics, because the reason why I came is on the rescue mission of the state government over the stranded Ebonians in Lagos. And we are doing quite well by evacuating them. So government has not and will not indulge in wasteful spending. And the data is there for you to check.
So I'm curious about the rescue mission that you talked about further. Why did you have to evacuate them? Is it that they were staying here? I wouldn't say illegally, really, because you're free to move around, but is it that they were staying here without any means of livelihood, a proper shelter or accommodation? Did the state government say, well, you have to take your people back home? Why exactly did you make that decision? Or the people said, we want to come back home, right? That's on the one hand. And quickly, I'd like you to speak to land acquisition in Ebonyi State. How easy is it for someone from maybe, let's say, Kano to come and purchase land for business or for resident or for whatever reason, or someone from Osun State. So those 2 points. Why is it an evacuation and rescue mission rather than just providing succor, and a bit about land?
Yeah, because the demolition came quite early. I believe that, and I'm sure that the state government gave notice, but notice was very, very, very short, and there was no time for Ebonyi state government to make proper arrangement for some of them to stay. A lot of them have lived there for years, built houses and raised children there. So it's always difficult for you to leave a place you have stayed for over 20 years. So when they just came with bulldozer, there was nothing anybody could do. So the best the government could do at this point in time is to...
Were they occupying the place illegally?
No. They are citizens of the country. You are free to live anywhere. But
what I mean illegally is, were they building on places that were meant for government, or government, it was gazetted already for government to use the place, or what exactly went wrong?
Nigeria has been a community in Lagos over the years. People have lived there, and government, for our information, has right to take lands, but they must take it for the purpose of building for the public.
So is the government providing some form of compensation for them in case that they've had their own investment in those landed properties?
So that's exactly what we're looking at, because state government should be, Lagos government should be able to look at them and say, okay, you have lived for 20, 40 years, and you have built houses and investments there. We should be able to give some compensation. So I think we're working towards that.
Land.
Then the issue of land, Ebonyi has massive land. We give out freely. There are no encumbrances on processes of getting lands, because we want development to come. So you are free to come, we'll give you land, you develop, and you live very peacefully.
So just this one, in 30 seconds, if you are calling on Ebonyans in diaspora to come invest at home, will you also be partnering with NIDCOM in case Ebonyans are stranded abroad to help them return home?
Yeah, one of the good things my office has done is to have the data of Ebonyans anywhere in the world, so that if there's any problem, it will be easier for us to connect them. And we were able to achieve that through NIDCOM. I've just given some kudos to my chairman, Abike Dabre. He's a very wonderful man, and he's doing very well. And don't forget that the only business government has is protection and welfare, and that is exactly what the government has done.
All right, Mr. Valentine Okike Uzo, Commissioner for Special Duties and State Diaspora Focal Point Officer, Ebonyi State. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right, from here, we move on to another interesting subject matter that particularly affects Nigerian youths. This promises to be interesting, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's now switch gears. Now we head to Abuja studios, where we're being joined on the program by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizenship and Leadership, Ms. Rinsola Abiola. Ms. Abiola, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm curious. 2 questions I want to ask you in one as quickly as possible. So when I saw your office, Citizenship and Leadership, I wanted to be clear on what that means for Nigerians who don't understand what it is. That's on one hand. On the other hand, okay, maybe you quickly answer that before I get to my question.
All right, thank you. So I work closely with the leadership of the Ministry of Youth Development. There's an agency under the Ministry of Youth Development called the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center. So my office is directly attached to that agency. We're working on reforming that agency. Then also, as the name suggests, it's about developing young people's leadership potentials, generating, further awareness on our roles and responsibilities as citizens, helping young people develop into leaders, and that's essentially what the bulk of my work as SSAP, Citizenship and Leadership, has been focused on. We work, as I said earlier, closely with the Honorable Minister for Youth Development, influencing policies, and working to ensure that we're able to deliver as a ministry on the Renewed Hope Agenda for Youth Development and the presidential deliverables on youth development.
Okay, so let's get to the crux of the matter. The president had inaugurated our youth committee, National Youth Conference Committee, the other day, and curious minds will begin to imagine. We've had Justice Uwais that had to do with electoral reform. We had a Oronsia report that has to do with some reforms in the civil service. We've had the National Confab in 2014 under former President Goodluck Jonathan. And now when we hear of National Youth Conference, one is wondering, what exactly is the end game of the National Youth Conference? Whatever comes out of it, given all these ones I've mentioned, what exactly are we expecting to see in terms of change? Because some people are saying, oh, maybe just to hear the young people out. Is that all that it is? Some are saying it's just, an avenue for the boys to cash out. So what exactly is this?
Okay, so I would say firstly that all those previous conferences you listed were not convened by this administration. This is the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and if there is one thing that he has demonstrated, not just since he became president, but since he ventured into public service, into politics, it is that he is a man who keeps his word. And I would also say that this is the very first time in our history that we're having a conference specifically dedicated to young people. So this time around, it is to have young people come together to influence the process of nation building, national development. What do we as young people want to see? If you're on social media, if you watch TV often, which I'm sure you do considering where you work, and you listen to commentary on social issues and politics, you definitely must have noticed that young people usually have so much to say, lots of recommendations to make about how they think governance should be done, how administration should be done, what they think is wrong with the country, what they think we need to do to fix the country. So this is the Renewed Hope administration led by President Bola Tinubu saying, let the young people come together and then put all of these recommendations together. And the president has given his word that any recommendations made as a result of these deliberations that has to do with national development that will move us closer to our goal of building the country of our dreams. These are recommendations that will be implemented. So Mr. President is a man who keeps his word. We have also seen a clear commitment to youth inclusion and prioritizing youth issues by the fact that, one, we have a Ministry of Youth Development that is now separate from sports. At a point when the two were merged together, sports did take precedence over youth issues. And the president doing that is proof of the fact that he actually does want a special focus on youth issues and on youth development for us as a country. We also have for the first time that ministry being led by a young person, a young man who is Kwame Ayodele Olawande, and the rest of us working as presidential advisors to support him are also young people. So it is a ministry of young people, led by young people, managed by young people, and working really hard to prioritize the interests of young people. And we've had relative ease with doing this because we have a president who naturally prioritizes young people and understands the importance of young people in nation building and political administration.
Right. I know the president had some sort of sweet words for the youths recently, saying everything I do is about you. Almost sounds like, a line from a love letter or Valentine's. But the truth is, a lot of young people don't see that. They hear it time and again. They don't see it. They don't feel it. And a lot of them have lost hope in the future. Ironically, this is the Renewed Hope administration, right? So this is a very vital moment in the nation's history, not just this government's history now, in the nation's history. It's either hit or miss, but we want this to be a hit moment, right? So speak to us about the plans so far. Is this still going to be a 30-day confab? Is it going to hold in the nation's capital, Abuja, or will hold across the states or regions, as the case may be? In terms of date, what are we still looking at? Is the date set by the president, or at least the time frame set by the president, still the same? I'd like you to speak to those specifics so we can help the youths also manage the expectations of this conference.
Thank you. So I would begin by saying that we don't want an Abuja conference, so to speak. We understand that the bulk of our population is at the grassroots, and we also know that the youth demographic is not monolithic in the sense that you have very different groups of young people. There are the upwardly mobile ones, the professional young people, those who have had higher education, university graduates, non-university graduates, our young people in the formal sector, young people in the informal sector, and there is no way you can take a one-size-fits-all approach to properly consulting and conferring with such a diverse set of people. So what we want to do at this moment is to ensure that we have grassroots engagements, we have regional engagements as well, because again, you'll find that experiences differ across geopolitical zones and regions. So we want to ensure that we have a thorough process of consultation that ensures that we adequately capture the perspectives, the wants, the needs, the requirements, the demands, the recommendations of the different groups of young people people, because what we want to deliver on is a country that works for every single one of us, and that everybody feels heard and seen and valued. The inaugural meeting of the Conference Planning Committee is actually scheduled to hold this morning by 10 a.m. God willing at the Ministry of Youth, and at the end of that meeting we will have further details for the media and for other public stakeholders on the direction exactly that the committee has decided to take with program design, the confab itself. We have ideas because for the past 5 months we've done a lot of brainstorming as well. We've engaged our counterparts in civil society, we've engaged our counterparts in the private sector, we've engaged young people broadly, but now that we have a committee in place, we expect that there will be further inputs to be made by members of that committee, and then we can revert with a full document of updates that properly capture the direction that the committee will be taking with regards to implementation and consultation. But what we do know as a ministry, as young people who have worked very closely with other young people even outside of government, is that we need to have a thorough consultation process, and this is something that we are fully committed to delivering on, because it also aligns with Mr. President's commitment. He's a politician, a public servant whose strength lies in the fact that, he does a lot of grassroots engagement and he has a very strong following at that level. So as appointees of government, also prioritizing youth interest, we know as well that our strength, so to speak, as young people is in our numbers, and those numbers are found at the grassroots. So we want to ensure that every single Nigerian youth has a sense of belonging to this process. We also want to capture the thoughts of our young people in the diaspora and our Gen Zs who maybe don't really like physical engagement as much. So we're also working towards having virtual consultations where those who are either not in the country or those who are not able to join the physical engagements for one reason or the other, could be due to work commitments, could be due to just not wanting to be part of a physical engagement, also have a way to make their inputs and ensure that their thoughts are captured. We also want to receive memoranda from different social political youth groups across the country. There's going to be a portal in the website of the Ministry for Youth Development dedicated to that, to the confab and to getting memoranda submitted by different young people. So we're designing a very thorough consultation process that will ensure that thoughts are captured, that our people can actually speak, and that there is no limit to which young Nigerian exactly can participate in the process. If you can't come to a regional conference, if you can't come to a grassroots maybe town hall, if you can't come to the Abuja conference, you should also be able to participate in that process. The Abuja event eventually would be where we then tie everything together. So your explainer make recommendations, and we're also very focused on making actionable recommendations. So your explainer seems to suggest that the planned conference has an expansive scope. But for those who are listening to you right now and are saying, look, past confabs have not been implemented, even though they were not youth confabs, that the documents are just lying somewhere at the national offices without any hopes of anyone considering those documents. And for those also in that category who say that, look, this planned youth conference is just a distraction, and particularly made perhaps a subtle recognition of the power of the youth from what they did during the NSAS conference, and again, a distraction from the real issues of governance, which are not changing for the youths who feel a sense of discontent from this administration and past administrations, and have a very low trust quotient towards the administration. What would you be saying to convince them otherwise, that this would take a different trajectory? What I would say is that Mr. President has given his word. He told us, he said it right there at the inauguration of the committee, that the recommendations that we make that will influence national development will be implemented. For those of us who are young people and have always been supporters of the president, even before he became president, it's not something that we doubt, but I can understand if maybe other young people out there who are not very familiar with his trajectory could maybe have doubts or something similar. Again, previous confabs were not organized by the Tinubu administration. Mr. President decided by himself to announce a youth confab at the October 1 Independence Day address. And this is somebody who has always valued young people, even before he became president. If you look into his history as a politician, as an administrator, he has always platformed young people. So the disposition of being supportive towards young people, of being willing to listen to young people, is not something new. So that gives us the confidence that we have been sent on a national assignment that will actually yield impactful results and that we will be listened to. Also, this is an administration that has prioritized young people in many ways. I mentioned some of them earlier. This administration introduced a student loan fund to ensure that we're able to bridge the gap in education for our young people and offer them, better opportunities by being able to access higher education. An administration that does not care about the interests of young people would not have done, all of these things that I previously listed. So now saying that we want young people to contribute to national development, to state their demands clearly, to make recommendations clearly. Right. We have a very large population of young Nigerians that are doing exceptionally well.
Okay, Ursula,
whether
quickly,
it's in the
pardon me to come in quickly, because of time, I'll just quickly speak to this. In addition to that, are you inviting obedient youth, articulate youth, Kwankwasia youths as well? I don't know which other ones. Are you inviting all of them? Quickly, Ursula.
So I would say that please look through the list of the confab committee members. It is not a list made up of young people in the APC. We have people from civil society.
No, I'm asking specifically, would you be inviting obedient,
It is open to everybody, as long as you're a young Nigerian. As long as you're a young Nigerian, no matter what side of the divide you belong to, we're young people, we care about national development. We want our country to be better. I believe that the basis...
Just a moment. The question is as direct as it should be, so answer directly. It's open to everybody. Who have you in the committee?
It is open to everybody.
Hold on, Risola. In the committee, do you have obedience? Do you have articulate? That's the question. Yes or no? It's as simple as that.
Oh, in the committee itself?
Yes.
So we have members from across the country who belong to different political parties. So again, go through that list. If you find that it's made up of APC youths, then you can come back and say we've done something that is not holistic.
Well, one more thing, Risola.
Risola, totally out of time. Is maybe we have to bring you back, but I wish you guys the very best. I think it was a direct question. I don't need to look through your list. That's why you're here.
I answered already, but thank you very much.
And again, the reason why we keep asking these questions is because we've seen this before, but you're very confident in the president. But I could also tell you that looking at the budget of the ministry, for instance, it looks like youth ministry is a tokenism because 95% of the budget goes to NYC, 90% of it goes to personnel. When it comes to the cabinet of the president, just maybe about 2 or 3 people are young people. I can go on and on and on. But it's great you believe in the president. He needs those kind of people around him.
I would like to respond to that, please, if you would permit me.
We don't have the time. We'll invite you some other time. Just to give you, just heads up.
Okay, then. So we have unfinished business, because there's a lot to say regarding that, actually.
All right, fantastic. Rinsola Abiola, thank you so much. She's the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizenship and Leadership. We wish you the very best in this confab. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to other parts of the program. Join us again in just a moment.
Whichever way you look at it, something significant played out at the House of Reps yesterday, or the National Assembly in general. I'm not talking about the back and forth about other issues. I'm talking about what affects your life, your pocket, my pocket, and organizations at large. And that's the tax proposals, right? The House of Reps has passed some of those amendments in some sense. But really, what has changed about all of that? We're joined on the program by the President, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Mr. Samuel Agbelui is right here with us in our Lagos studio. Welcome to the Morning Brief, sir.
Good morning.
This is a journey we've been on for months now. I don't know, seeing what played out at the House of Reps yesterday, how significant or otherwise is it? Does it change anything? Because it's still at 7.5%, right? So does it change anything significantly, or we're just still going the same route?
Well, something significant happened. I agree. At least we are moving forward. There's progress, and that is good for the country, because at the end of the day, Nigeria needs those bills, as a matter of fact. And the significance of the bills transcend the VAT discussion that has taken the center stage over the past few months.
Yeah.
So a lot of good things in the bills that will change the face of Nigerian economy and the tax space. So we're happy that there's a progress, there's a movement. If you settle in on the rate, 7.5 is not, the committee recommended 10% for 2025-26, and but House of Rep is saying 7.5 should remain. What it means is the consumer, an average Nigerian will have more money in their hand. They have more money to play with, and they are able to buy more goods and also patronize more services, and that has its impact on the economy generally. You have the opportunity, it can stimulate the economy. So either way, if you increase it, the government will have more money and they are able to do more infrastructure, all things being equal. So whichever way you look at it, it's good that we are discussing this and that we are moving forward.
But I'm curious, really, because yes, it stays at 7.5%, right? But when you go to some of these places, to businesses, to maybe you go to a high-end restaurant or places that charge VAT, right? So on the receipt, you see VAT 7.5%. Then you see consumption tax, 5%. So in actual fact, all in all, you're paying 12.5%, right? So are we really paying 7.5% VAT? Because VAT is meant to be a consumption tax, right? So why is there consumption tax separate?
Okay, when CITN, when we keep on supporting and marketing this bill, we have seen a lot of benefit inherent in that bill. The arrangement is that the moment these bills are signed into law, that will be the end of construction tax, where you have a state practicing that. That agreement is in place, I'm aware. So it will put an end to consumption tax while VAT itself will take root. And that means 7.5, if 7.5 is what the Senate will recommend and the two houses will agree on, then it will remain 7.5. So there are a few states where you have consumption tax that will go. That is the arrangement I'm aware of as we speak.
So, but as it stands right now, the consumption tax and that VAT, is it right? Is it in order? I know you've talked about the state arrangement, but it looks like a bit too much, because you get in there thinking, I'm paying 7.5% tax, but then they give you your receipt. You paid already most times. So is it in order? Does it help businesses? Because what you find out is a lot of people then don't go to that place of business anymore. In fact, I had someone there who glanced at that receipt and said, there's extra 5%, I'm not hungry anymore. And the person walked out. So this is actually affecting businesses right now before that bill is maybe passed and signed into law, if that happens.
Well, the basic truth is that nobody pays tax with a smile on his face. Nobody wants to pay. But the lower the rate, the better for the citizens. And I can tell you, this is one of the confusion, if I may use that word, that these bills are bringing into our system, whereby the various type of taxes above 60, above whatever, depending on the state you are in, will be coming if we retain education tax, the House of Rep has done yesterday. Yeah. Then we may be having about 10 different types of taxes. That is still a whole lot of a movement, positive movement for that matter, from what we used to have as we speak. So I tell you, end of the day, Nigeria is going to benefit from this, and let's not forget that taxation is a derivative of the economy itself. So it's a tool to move the economy. If you want more money in the hand of the citizens, then you reduce rate. They have more money and their purchasing power will go up, and of course they will patronize the supermarket, as you mentioned.
Interesting. Very interesting days ahead, but I want us to look at quick sections of the amendment so people know what is coming, right? Because some of these bills are voluminous for people to go through. So for the purpose of attribution, any return under this section, and that's one of the amendments, shall provide details of derivation of taxable supplies by location in a manner prescribed by the service. And, the matter of attribution, derivation, or what have you, any return under that section shall provide details of consumption of taxable supplies irrespective of where the return is filed. Do you think that fundamentally resolves that debate? And I don't want to make this a state or a region thing, but there was a debate about the revision and all of that. Do you think that has been resolved now fully?
It actually does, and it's also part of the positive development in the bees. Wherever you consume, that is the state that is bearing the body, and it's called fiscalization, whereby companies, supermarkets, will read time on time, be able to report the location of transaction. So once that is done, then of course, the VAT arising, whether you file your return in Ebonyi or you file in Kano, the place of consumption, by virtue of the fiscalization that has been embedded in the bill, will show where the VAT should go.
Yeah.
So it's a solution to a lot of headache that we have as we speak.
Hence, we didn't have as much opposition. It looks like the president has found a way to placate all the other interests. So 50% to be distributed equally, 20% based on population. That's a VAT now. 30% based on consumption derivation. The military, by the way, is exempted from personal income tax. But I want you to speak to the point I raised earlier. Bills are good, proposals are good, but in terms of ease of doing business, supporting, by the way, it's no more MSMEs, it's now NMSMEs. So there's now nano that has been accommodated before we go to micro. So there are businesses that need all of the help they can get. But what do they get? Taxes upon taxes. Today, local government comes, and all of a sudden, you see the bicycle tax, the TV tax, and you're thinking, I'm just making 20,000 naira monthly from this business, right? So, in terms of helping businesses, and what businesses should know as well, in terms of your turnover, if you don't do up to a certain threshold, you shouldn't pay tax. But you still find businesses that are maybe doing 10 million, still putting it there just in case they come for them. So, ease of doing business. I'd like you to speak to that, particularly for businesses who are not doing as high turnover, but they are still worried that they will come for them nonetheless.
Thank you for that question. This is where the work will just be starting. Immediately these bills are passed into law. The laws will not implement
themselves.
Itself. So we will need to sit down and do the real work. The headache, if I may use that word, particularly as we speak, rests mostly with the local government, where all manners of taxes are collected, and even at the state, what we have realized in CITN is that when the politicians are campaigning, they have support from various entities and people, and at the end of the day, after election, those people will go back and say, okay, how do I get compensated? And we have seen states whereby the governor will say, okay, go to the south of the state, whatever you can collect, that will be your payback. Some people will take money to the government and say, okay, I'll give you 10 billion. I know I will be able to collect these taxes. So I have this money to do the work of the government. And so how it collects, whether it collects 20 billion, nobody knows. This is not taxation. This is just a crude way of collecting money from people. And Nigeria cannot sustain this. So we pray these bills will be passed into law, but the job will just be beginning.
Right.
Because we need a lot of advocacy. The market women, there is no law. We don't really have a lot of body, legally speaking, for this set of people. But the non-state actors that have been supported by the people in government, in power, these are the people we need to address. If you move some 2 kilometers away from this office, you see on the expressway, where boys, you don't know where they are coming from, stop trucks and they collect money.
In fact, they have a yellow jacket they wear now.
Exactly. So that is not what we need. This is not how to classify Nigeria as a civilized environment. So a lot of work. The federal government is doing this, but we need to do a lot of advocacy. The state governors and the local government, they need to know that we can't continue the old ways. Otherwise, Nigeria will not move and we won't get the benefit that we are supposed to get from this That's big.
Because some of the structures are also to oil the political wheel.
Exactly.
You know, job for the boys. You've worked for my election. You take this. I look away, sadly.
We need to move away from that.
I really hope that this would mean new things. Again, it's just been passed. There's still another process. We're still looking at the upper legislative house, and then there's the eventual signing, which we don't know how long that will take. But quite important points you have raised, and I'm glad we're talking local government. But most importantly, it's like the job is just getting started. So you wouldn't mind if we call you later to continue this journey we started some months ago?
We are available. We are available. It's a service to our great nation.
We have to thank you so much, President, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Mr. Samuel Agbelui, for providing more insight into this and speaking to what really matters in this conversation. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a moment now. We hope you have some better understanding of the tax reforms, what it means to your business, and importantly, the government as well. But we'll take a quick break. When we return, it's time to relax, right? And we have some of your favorite content creators joining us on the show. You know what? Stay with us to find out. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. So let's get gradually to the softer side of things, and you're going to love this particular one that we're bringing to you. Content creation, but with a different slant to it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ofuebu Promise, content creator, to Morning Brief on Channels Television. Promise, it's so good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So your job as a content creator is to educate us on what goes on at the National Assembly and the typical day in the life of the National Assembly. So I want you to first of all speak to how you came about this particular gap in knowledge about how Nigeria's National Assembly functions and why you decided to provide this intervention.
All right, thank you very much for having me this morning. I basically started off as a computer scientist. I studied computer science in school. But over time, during my IT, I was privileged to do my IT at National Assembly, but not in the main complex. During my service here, I tried to do it somewhere else in a media house, but lots of media houses turned me down. So I just returned back to National Assembly because I knew someone who gave me the opportunity to work there. So returning back to National Assembly, I went further beyond just looking or just at coming to work. I wanted to really understand in depth what really happens at the National Assembly, because if you look around, a lot of we, the youth, do not really understand, most especially the upcoming ones, the Gen Zs, millennials and the likes. We don't really understand the inner workings of the National Assembly. So I used this opportunity. I also had to attend the National Assembly School, an institution called the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. I enrolled there with my own money, got the knowledge, and I thought to myself, this is a gap a lot of people do not understand, because I go out there and what a lot of people say out there is not corresponding with what actually happens at the National Assembly. So in order to bridge that gap between what really happens at the National Assembly and what people know out there or perceive the National Assembly to be out there, I had to just jump into content creation and educate people about what happens at the National Assembly, a regular day in the life of a senator or an honorable member, various committee hearings, what happens at the committee hearings, and just generally throwing more light generally at the legislative arm of government. Because to me, the legislative arm of government is a very, very critical part of governance. It's a part which we do not critically look at. An average person looks at the executive arm of government, want the executive arm of government to provide everything, but what does the legislature do? What are the rules of the legislature? You know, how can we harness the legislature to account or to request for good governance? So making people really understand the power of the legislature. To me, the legislature is actually one of the most, or even the most powerful arm of government. You know, not to downplay the other arms of government like the executive and judiciary, but with the legislature, you can hold your governor accountable, you can hold the president accountable, you can hold your local government chairman accountable. If they are not doing things right, it is through the legislature you can use to hold them accountable. So that basically prompted me into going into content creation about the legislature, most especially the National Assembly, where I found myself.
All right, Promise, let's do a quick one on some of the processes, because I've seen a couple of your content. So walk us through how maybe a senator, a member of the House of Reps, for instance, how the day begins and ends for a typical, let's say a typical day in the life of a legislator, let's say the Senate, for instance. So maybe in 2 minutes, if you can walk us through so that Nigerians understand the work that is involved.
All right. So basically, the National Assembly sits 3 days in a week. That's on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. They are usually supposed to be at their constituencies on Mondays and Fridays, as well as the weekend, to engage with their constituencies. So on normal, they're supposed to sit Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. So usually plenary resumes by 11 a.m. And once senators resume plenary by 11 a.m., most of them just go to the chamber seats, while the principal officers, including the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, and all other principal officers, most likely gather at the Senate President's office. When it's time for them to resume, they all move to the chamber, where all senators stand up to welcome the Senate President, which is statutory, which is normal. Once plenary starts, they start off with the prayers. After the prayers, they ask for motions or maybe anything anybody wants to present from their constituencies, maybe to notify the Senate about one or two things. The Senate President will ask for it, which senators will now let them know about it. From there, the Senate leader would read the order of the day, which is usually on the order paper, and they take it order by order. That is, maybe if there's a bill to be considered, if there's a motion, they all take this step by step according to what is on the order paper. They usually do not go outside the order paper. They only stick to what is on that order paper. So after they exhaust whatever is on the order paper, usually plenary ends by sometime around 2 p.m., but usually they extend beyond 2 p.m. If they are not able to exhaust what is on the order paper, they will extend beyond 2 p.m. to sit till whatever time. But this is usually made known by the Senate leader, who would raise the motion that we should extend plenary beyond 2 p.m., which is their regular sitting time. And after extending this, they exhaust what is on their order paper. From exhausting that, they close plenary for that day. From there, most senators go for committee hearings, public hearings, or even oversight functions, where they go to meet various MDAs, talk to them. If there's an investigative hearing, they ask them about maybe money missing or things that they need to account for. And this could stretch till maybe 5 o'clock, sometimes 6 o'clock. From there, they have to return back to their office to meet with their constituencies, interact with them, engage with them, hear them. And most times, some senators close or work by, say, 8 o'clock, some 9 o'clock, depending on how busy that day might be. So this is basically just the way an average day in the life of maybe a senator or an honorable member actually goes.
And that's a full day, but really, they are elected legislators, so no apologies for them working long hours. But it is also from your content that I've gotten to know the 5 topmost, most punctual senators. And also from your content that we know that a legislator must sign in as they arrive at the National Assembly. But very quickly, for those who do not attend or who do not show up for legislative business like in other organizations, will the funds, the allowances and the salaries of that day be deducted from their monthly package?
Okay, so a senator is supposed to attend plenary at least 181 days in a year, on an average. Now, there are certain reasons that could hinder or stop a senator from, or an honorable member from attending plenary. It could be they are going for oversight functions. It could be they are having engagements back at home. So some of these could be things that could hinder or stop a senator or an honorable member from attending plenary for that day. But generally, a senator or an honorable member must attend plenary at least 181 days in a year. If you don't attend at least to this minimum number of times in a year, there will be obviously penalties at the end of the day. Most likely your salaries might be cut short or your allowances might be cut short generally.
Okay, it's good to know. Talk to us also about the value of the work you're doing as it is received by Nigerians. And this is important because of the general disaffection about the humongous salaries and allowances that our legislators go home with as against the value of the work that they bring. So how is it being received? How is it changing the perception of Nigerian legislature?
All right. The content I've been creating so far has been enlightening. A lot of, I believe within this short period I've been creating this content, I've been able to at least impact a little bit of knowledge into people. If you look at Nigeria today, you look at the content we are churning out there, most over 80 to 90% of the content we Nigerians, or an average Nigerian you put out there, it's just basically to, as they say, catch crews or just put out blank content without any value to people. But I'm going beyond that to educate people about the parliament. This is what they do. Yes, the people complain that, yes, they receive a lot of salary, their allowances are a lot, but to me personally, it goes beyond just that. These salaries are being used for a lot of things. They are not to defend them, no, not to defend them, but it goes beyond just what we see. It goes beyond just the cars. It goes beyond maybe the flashy cars and what they dress like. There's a lot of work that goes into this. Meeting of constituencies in a day, lots of constituencies in a day. And at the end of the day, these constituencies they might not just go home empty-handed. As a senator, you have to give them something. As an honorary member, you have to give them something just to pacify maybe the hunger or maybe a grievance or whatever it is, just to calm them down. And you have to dole out cash every day. You look at the breakdown of an average senator's allowances, you see hardship allowances, you see few other allowances here and there. If you categorically look at this, you will see that each one has its own purpose. There is supposed to be, now I don't know how many people know this, but every senator is meant to have a place every month or every quarter. They are supposed to engage with their constituencies. So you're supposed to build a town hall. Every constituency is supposed to have a town hall where every senator is supposed to go there and engage with their citizens or with their constituents. Take, for instance, when we had this tax reform bill, every legislator, every senator, every honorary member is supposed to go home.
I was coming at this point. We hear the justification for those allowances time and again, but the jury is out there about whether or not the legislators are doing a justification to the expenditure in their constituencies. But we appreciate the value of your work, and those who appreciate the value of Promise's work say aye. And the eyes have it. Thank you so much. Ofegwu Promise is a content creator who has joined us on this conversation from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So from here, we move on to another aspect of content creation, but we expand it into the other aspects of the creative space. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. Join us again. We'll be right back shortly.
So let's get right into it. We have, I'm tempted to say Madam Gold, joining us in our studio. A real name, if you want to sign that check, is Steve Chooks. He's an actor, content creator, an all-around amazing guy. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, how are you?
How is you, Madam Gold, and the whole family?
Yeah, all fine. Everyone is fine.
So I'm sure a lot of people may be shocked seeing you in person, right? They're used to the character. I think for a lot of people, maybe Madam Gold is their favorite, right?
Yeah.
But speak to us how you were able to transition, because one moment you have Madam Gold, and the next moment you are, how many characters do you have? I think about 4, 5, 6?
6, yeah.
What's going on? Is it a Nigerian thing? The one road doesn't lead to the market, so that just brings out all of the creativity in us.
I think I just really enjoy acting. Because I read it in school, theater arts, so at a time when I was still figuring out what I wanted to do, I just thought about it. I had my phone, let's start doing something. And this was like 2018, 2017, so I started with one character, got bored of it, started another one, and that's how it went.
Amazing. So it's good to know that you have the background in acting. Some don't. It's just by happenstance or something they've been doing. But saying in Nigeria, we're all actors in some sense. But I want you to speak to us about your journey. I saw one of your throwback pictures. I don't know if you posted it recently or I stumbled on it.
Maybe.
I'm like, wow, it's been a journey for you. Now you're a big boy.
Am I? We're trying.
So talk to us about how you started and how you were able to become this big boy.
I think I just had a vision, and I couldn't wait because I was doing auditions, and I just didn't want to wait anymore. So I decided to start with my phone at the time. I mean, I started on YouTube in 2013, but I mean, it didn't peak. So I started again in 2017 after like uni and all. And then from one video to another, trying to convince people that I'm a good actor. Then they thought I was funny. I said, okay, let's be funny, put in some comic relief in there. And, working with brands over time got me the recognition that I needed. And obviously, in 2023, I got nominated for the AMVCA, one of the biggest things I've had. And then, we're still pushing, going into movies by the grace of God very soon. Hopefully, we get there.
Tell us how easy it is to transition into different characters. It reminds me of Madea in Tyler Perry's series. How maybe for you it's easy, maybe it's how is it for you?
I think when I just put on the costume, it happens.
The spirit comes up.
I just need the costume to be there.
That.
So when I just wear the costume, nothing you're telling me is me. I'm answering you like Madam Go. They know, people that work with me know that if I'm wearing that costume, I'm already immediately in character. So it's the costume. There's something there. Maybe my mother put something there. Is
it jazz?
It's your mom's clothes.
It's her clothes.
Really? Real? For real?
Yes, they are all her clothes. I mean, all clothes that she's wearing.
How has she been taking it, like seeing her son behaving like her?
When you send money,
you're forgiving, right?
They are okay. When there's money coming in, it's fine.
I like that.
I like that.
Thank you.
Amazing, beautiful. Maybe Kaide, you want to consider it?
With his voice, no.
I'll call my parents to send my clothes, maybe.
No.
Talk to us about regulation. Content creation is an all-comers affair increasingly in recent times, and there's a lot of sometimes NTBB that comes into play. So I believe that the Video Censors Board is considering some form of regulation, but really, how will that work, and what more can be done at that engagement level of content creators to ensure that the right things are done?
I feel like regulation has to come into play, number one, but also because we're really posting on the internet, there is a free space. It's going to be hard to get people to follow a certain format. I personally have certain topics that I don't touch on or I don't do just because of my own morals and ethics, but I think it's going to be very hard because we Nigerians were stubborn. But I know that if certain things are put into place to make sure that certain things can come out, just maybe we might get it right. But for now, we're stubborn. I know so many content creators are stubborn. When the money is involved, they don't really care. They're just like, let's make this money. And those kind of contents that we might find offensive sort of go faster. I don't know how to explain it, but they like those kind of content. So maybe those people that's what they're doing it. I don't know, but I feel like you said, maybe if you bring those into play.
So how do you charge? Do you charge in naira or dollar?
Whichever one you want. Do you want to book me?
No, because the new tax law says if you are doing business in dollar, your VAT will be in dollars. Are you aware?
I charge in very much naira.
At this point, it does pro bono. Nobody to look at.
No, but I charge in naira. I mean, to be very sincere, like any of the day, I think money just came into play after. But what I really wanted to do was just act. And then thank God that we are getting paid for it now from like YouTube and other spaces that acknowledge our talent. But yeah.
So for you, vitally, what's the essence? What's the messaging? So if you look at, let's audit your 2024. If you look at your messaging in 2024, what would you say are the two things that you were trying to say and you felt you said it?
I'm very pro-women. So my major topic in 2024 was, I did a series that had to do with divorce. So I was very pro, it's okay to leave. the marriage, because one of my characters, Madam Gold, she got a divorce in 2024, and
Madam Gold.
Madam Gold, I tell you, but it was very important for me because I just had family members in the past who stayed in marriages that were not favoring them, and so I just put that into play, and I said, you know what, that 2024, I wanted to push that it's okay to leave in my videos, and I think they got it. Also, I wanted to push that it's okay to be sorry, which is this man, because you can see Chike coming back to apologize. After a while, I stopped. After I did the divorce, I just paused because I didn't want to be like, oh, I just started again. I wanted it to sink in. They watched it for like a few months. Then I came back. I just came back to YouTube like a few months ago. I left for like a while.
You said these men.
Thank you.
Steve, you said these men. You are part of the men.
I mean, but you know, because I just saw my mother's sisters, so I'm very pro women. Let me say that out there.
What is it with you men? Why?
No, I mean I love us.
Oh, okay, I'm part of
we
that.
have a little bit of problem and we need to fix it, and so you know.
Is it, for instance, is it that it's paying more now to play women in content creation?
So I think it's just, maybe that's what flies, that's what people like, but I do a lot of guy characters that I don't know why people are not talking about. This, in the Nigerians in general, I need to talk about my male characters. I do a lot.
Yeah, and the masculinity just came out.
So what do we do to summon Madam Gold on the show this morning?
I'm going to try and find it just to... Anyways, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful. Darling,
This one is very nice. This is a nice Madam Gold. What's going on?
She's always nice. People just don't think she's nice. Sometimes she's nice.
Sometimes
she's
you
nice.
said that.
Yeah.
On a final note, as we begin to wind down, are you fulfilled?
We're getting there. We're working towards fulfillment, but I'm happy at the stage that I am now. Obviously, yearning for more, but we're working towards more fulfillment.
What will fulfillment look like for you?
Just being comfortable. My family is comfortable, and, you know, I've got it to the point where I know I can relax.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what? This is not the end of the conversation. We know you have great things coming out this year. We're looking forward to the movie.
Yes,
your latest
video. Movie, come to us.
I will sure do. I like this place, so I'll come back.
It's a safe space for all of your characters. We have to thank you so much. I love your person, your content. Fantastic guy.
I love the transitions and the messaging too.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Chooks, all of the characters in one. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. God bless.
So we hope we've been able to convince and not confuse you. There's greatness in Nigeria. Thank you for being a part of the show today. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Thank you for journeying with us all through the week. We'll be back again next week. I am Bukola Koka.
It's a great weekend ahead. Enjoy it. Have fun with yourself and your family. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.